Bay Area Disc's 2015 Youth Ultimate Coaching Conference.
So this session is about giving girls a voice, and I'm Heather Ann, and I have done a lot of coaching elementary through college age. I love coaching girls, and I love the kind of empowerment piece of kind of how that translates to off the field. I am currently coaching U16 YCC girls out of Seattle. I also coached the U19 girls out of North Carolina not so long ago, and am the National Girls Director for USA Ultimate. So doing a lot of work with the Girls Ultimate movement, and it's been a lot of fun. And since doing that, have gotten a lot more questions about how do you coach girls, how do you teach girls differently than you teach boys? And we'll talk about that quick comparison in the beginning, and then I'm going to stray away from that because I don't really like using the comparison of boys and girls. I like to focus on how am I coaching girls. So to look at that real quick, if you flip to the next page, why do you love Ultimate? I asked a handful of the players I coached and said, why do you love Ultimate? The girls and boys came back. There was an N of 7, in case anyone cares about data analysis here. 7 girls, 7 boys. And the words based on how big they are, how bold they are, indicate what kind of really showed up. For girls, community really stood out. Spirit was also pretty important. Friends, athleticism, fun. On the boys' side, you saw a lot of the same words. You also saw things like layout, greatest, Callahan, aggression, intensity. So it kind of depends on how you look at it. But in general, I mean, a lot of the themes are the same. So there doesn't have to be a huge difference. And I think a lot of how I approach coaching girls is a little more on how I approach the off-field component and how I approach the culture and the connectedness of the team, and what tools I give them to create what they want that team to be, and that kind of empowers them on the field as well. So one thing that I've been talking about a lot today is about how girls, and in general women, underrank themselves. If you ask them in a survey of like, oh, like where do you rank yourself in this population or something like that, they're often underranked. For the girls high school hat league that DisnNW is running right now, you look at the rankings of girls, and you have a girl who played on a YCC team that won this year, and they rank themselves as a 5 or 6 out of 10. And you then look over at the boys hat league, and you have some boys who the DisnNW staff has never heard of before, and they're 10. And so it's how do you kind of empower to see yourselves in a positive light. So I was trying to think of some themes and some key things that I think about when I'm approaching coaching girls, and I created them into the acronym CLEAR just because it was convenient and because it makes it clear of how to approach things. And the first word is culture. And it's not so much you creating a culture, but giving the girls tools to empower them to create a culture that they want to see in their team. Language is really important, and it's something as simple as saying person defense instead of man defense. It's also if you coach a girls practice and a boys practice, you're going to see I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry a lot more at that girls practice when there's turnovers, when there's mistakes. And I'll tell you my secret for dealing with that. Emotions, talking about the things Diana talked about this morning, right? That empathy, that connectedness, being able to be where you're at and feel like that's okay, and valuing those emotions. Agency, I think, is really important, and agency is more focused on giving the girls the ability to speak up and have a say and have a voice, and that really adds to the buy-in that they have in the team and in the people around them. And finally, role models, and this may seem like an obvious one, getting female role models for girls playing, really important, but the second piece to that, and something I tried to demo a bunch with my YCC girls this summer, is empowering them to be role models. So we ran a bunch of clinics as part of their summer training for YCC. And what I found is after those clinics, after they were out there teaching those skills, they came back to practice a lot more confident because now they were role models and they saw what that meant and saw what that felt like. And they really took that to heart, and it's a thing they're excited about. We're running another gum clinic in March, and it's Underground is partnering with Uprising, which was the U16 girls, and they're really excited. And they're, hey, can you send me an email that I can send out to all these people I know? And they want to be involved. They helped plan the clinic. They are excited, and that's awesome. And that feedback loop continues, right? It continues through different generations and different levels of play. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different tips and tricks today. The first one is going to be kind of a little project we do, which is a team charter. This is an idea that I got from my roommate who was doing a bunch of emotional intelligence training as part of her teacher work this year. And so she came home and was talking about it, and it was really cool. And so they were making classroom charters at her school. We made a house charter because it's applicable there. And I thought, what a neat idea. And I wonder if this is something I can work on with a team and create a team charter. And so I tried that with my high school girls, and it was a blast, and they really enjoyed it, and they did a really great job. And I thought this is such a great tool that other people could be using. So we're going to create a little mini team charter. And the things we really asked during the team charter is, how do you want to feel as an individual? Like, how do you want to feel at practices? How do you want to feel at games? This isn't a goal, right? It's not, I want to win state championships. I want to win this. It's, how do you want to feel? Like, what does the experience want to be for you? And then we'll put those together into how do we do that as a team, and then kind of create actionable items out of that and how to come back to that if we stray away. And then lastly, we'll start to talk about how that impacts on the field. So if you flip over to the next page, there's a section of how do you want to feel at practices, games. Just take a quick minute and fill in kind of some words of how do you want to feel. If you put yourselves in the shoes of a player, and how do you want to feel? What are you looking for?
And I took challenged both, like you talked about being tired and all that. I took challenged both physically and mentally.
Perfect.
And into that learning section.
Okay, I wrote loved, appreciated, valued, challenged, supported, accomplished, excited, motivated, and happy.
Nice.
So,
I like excited, motivated, and happy. I feel like you lose so much of practice if not everybody's not like feeling it.
you put excited too, right?
I put excited.
When I did this with my girls, we wrote words up on the board as they read them. Once we went around, everyone read them, they circled them. Anything that was circled, they read aloud, and I wrote it up. And so if there were words that were kind of similar, like enthusiasm and
combine them
positivity,
and
I was
see,
like,
which
hey, do you
word
guys
you
think
guys like
positivity
best?
would go with
Yeah.
enthusiasm? Yeah, okay. And then we starred everything to the right, so you had like a list, and sometimes for like community, we had like 7 different words that meant community.
Yeah.
And so then we were able to narrow down like, hey, what words really stand out? What do we want to use? And sometimes there's a word that's like, hey, one of my girls said, you know, I really like the word grit. I put it on my list. It's not up there. It wasn't said by anyone else, but I really like that word. And other people are like, wow, yeah, I really like the word grit too. I'd love to have that as part of this. And so it's not just limited, but that's kind of how you build that up.
Gotcha. Cool.
Makes it seem like one win. My success would
I
be
need
with
mom
being
sometimes.
challenged and then rising to that.
Honestly.
I just want to make
Did you share yours also? No. You repeat it? I didn't.
Oh, I talked about kind of caring about the people on my team and
Okay.
we all worked to get here and I showed up in practice and I accomplished something together.
Okay.
Do you guys want to tell us what your common themes were?
Yeah. I'll do it.
you seem to volunteer.
You said yeah.
My mouth open first. So our common themes were feeling valued, challenged, accomplished, and excited. Those are the main 4. Happy was also a good one.
Nice. How about you guys? Do you have any common?
I just circled better because he wrote improved, so I said
Yeah.
one way of being improved is getting better. Also successful, but we had different definitions of successful. So it doesn't necessarily mean winning the game, but you can be successful if maybe your goal was to catch the disc or your goal was to improve on your throw. Those things may happen at a game or
Sure. And I think for any of those words, there's kind of different meanings to anybody, right? So normally the next step in this is you narrow this down to 4 to 6 different words. Normally there's a few clear 3 to 4 words that are really obvious. There are tons of people who really pick these themes. And then there's like another word that's, oh, that was a really cool word. Like one of my girls raised her hand and was like, hey, I used the word grit, and that's not on the board because nobody else used it, but I really like that. And I think it brings about intensity and focus and all these things. And other people are like, oh, that's a great word, let's add that. The next step, once you kind of have those words, is to create some actionable items. And I just pulled up the list from my girls. So one of our words was confidence. And the way on the next page, you would write confidence here, and then kind of some action items to achieve that if we're going with confidence. We'll pick one of your words and do that in a second. Just as an example, what they came up with for confidence was, we will consistently attend practice and hold one another accountable. We will not say I'm sorry, we will be stars, and I'll tell you what that's about in a moment. We will give one another positive feedback. We will give each other high fives, and we will conduct ourselves with the utmost swagger. High school girls. High school girls. And so that's awesome. Let's pick one of your guys' words and work with that. How about?
I mean, it sounded like what you guys were talking about is kind of like feeling accomplished, no matter what it is, whether you're making mistakes and getting better from that, or like succeeding at a goal that you had been working on. Like accomplished seems to be a common one amongst everyone here.
Great. So let's go with accomplished. So what action items can we put into place to feel accomplished? What are things we could do?
Set a personal goal.
We could set personal goals.
Be encouraging of each other.
I think don't dwell on your mistakes too long.
Okay, not dwelling on your mistakes. Be encouraging of one another.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think along with setting personal goals, it might be sharing those personal goals.
Sure, sharing
Unless
personal
it's
goals.
super personal or something. But
So one thing that I do when I coach is I create a buddy system pretty early. And that buddy system is usually not people who have been friends. I try to branch out and give them someone new. And so that would be a space in which they can share that. And the buddy system's around for them to have check-ins throughout the season. They miss a practice, call up your buddy, find out what we worked on. And the girls took it really seriously last summer. They're really into like, hey, I missed practice. What did I work on? What do I need to learn? Like how this is working.
The system is so good.
And it's great because you feel like you have a person, right? If you're struggling, if you're having a rough day, you can go talk to that person. So that's awesome.
I've never played on an ultimate team without having a buddy.
Yeah.
It's always a thing.
It's the best. So that can kind of play into some of those ideas. So the next step in this is what happens if you stray away from this? What if your team vibe goes away from feeling accomplished, right? Maybe you lost 3 games in a row and people are feeling down. How do you get back to that? And this is where that tangible item becomes really important. So I told you about confidence and my girl is talking about confidence. So what is our tangible item if we've strayed away from feeling confident? And how is that determined is a question one of the other groups asked, which I think is important, right? Who decides that we're not being confident anymore as a team? Or who decides we're not feeling accomplished? And that goes back to some of the things I talked about in the beginning, right? It goes back to agency. It goes back to the girls being bought into what they've established as their charter and speaking up and saying, you know, coach, I don't feel like, I'm feeling not great about this right now. And how do we, let's talk about it. And I think as a coach, you can also recognize, hey, so let's go back to our team charter for a second. We were talking about being accomplished and that being one of our goals. How are you feeling? Are you feeling that way right now? Are we doing these action items on here? It's like, not really. What can we do to get back there? So for confidence, the example I can give you is we talked about if we're not feeling confident, we're going to set a goal and work until we achieve that goal. An example being 50 completions in a go-to drill. Something that is tangible, and we're going to go and do this. So let's think about what could be something to do if we stray away from feeling accomplished.
I think that initial communication of feeling like that is the first step of it. So I think sometimes it can be, you can feel that inside, but maybe not want to bring it up, or maybe your coach doesn't see that you're feeling like that. So first acknowledging that it's happening is like super important, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I think another important aspect of this is the kind of relationship you have with your team. if you're a disconnected coach, this may be something that's more difficult to do as a team. But if you're actively engaged in everything and you're showing them that they care, that you care, whatever it is, they're much more likely to dispel this kind of information, especially with adolescents.
I think that's spot on, and that kind of is a great segue into some of the other tips and tricks we're going to talk about. So in general, you do this for all of these components. You talk about this right away, and you have this set up, and you can create some fun, bright colored document. You can structure it however you want, something that they really feel like they have ownership over, and really kind of defines the team for them. I found that leading up to working on this charter, I had 7, 8 girls at practice, and as soon as we did the charter, I had 12 to 15. It was like a night and day switch, and it was because they felt bought in. They felt connected, and that was pretty cool. So let's talk about a few other tips and tricks that I think are really useful. One is you were talking about being disconnected, right, and how to stay connected and show that you're engaged. And Diana talked about this morning, right? She talked about the empathy piece and the connection and the eye contact. And so one thing I like to do is check-in, check-outs. And so at the beginning of practice, everybody goes around and says one word of how they're feeling. You can also do a thumbs up, sideways down, depending on the vibe of your team, depending on what works. I like the words because I think it gives you an idea of where people are at. And as a coach, it's creating a culture where you can say it's okay to be wherever you're at. So if you come to practice and you're tired, or you come to practice and you're angry after a 45-minute commute as a player on a team, and you're like, I just got stuck in traffic, maybe you're frustrated, and that's okay. But the whole point of saying where you're at is that your teammates know where you're at, and it's an acknowledgement of, hey, we're all here together. So we're gonna go around and say one word of how you're feeling right now. I'm feeling energized.
I'm feeling accomplished.
I feel like I spent my time wisely today.
Inspired. Stole that.
You can use someone's word more than once.
I like that word. I'm gonna have to go with it. It's so true.
Helpful.
Comfortable.
Challenged. Challenged.
Doesn't make it any less meaningful.
Feels less meaningful.
And that's what you're at.
Annoyed.
So the next part on this is interactive warm-up. So one thing I think that really helps get the team together and get the team brought in after you've kind of connected, oh, this is where we're at today, is doing a type of warm-up that's super interactive. So the warm-up I've been running a bunch with high school girls and middle school girls is a spin-off of the Team USA U23 Girls Warm Up. I played on Phoenix the year a few of my teammates played U23, and they came back and they had this awesome warm-up, and they wanted to teach us, and we started running it, and it became, I had not ever liked warm-ups because I felt like I'd be in my quiet little headspace doing some plyos, and so this is really cool because you're engaged and you're working with one another. So I'm gonna just demo a few little things out of it. If you're interested in kind of a more in-depth version of it, you can send me an email and I'm happy to share it. So we need to get some discs and set up a little alley here, and I need a buddy. Wanna be my buddy?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Great. Here, can I have some Frisbees? Awesome. So we're gonna, do you mind moving the bag that way a little bit? We're just gonna do a super mini version of this. So yeah, I need a line over there. Do a super mini. Do you know what's happening?
I might.
Great, that'd make this even more fun. These are maybe too close to each other. Can we use your disc? And we need one more disc. Oh, 2 there. I just need 1. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so you set up a grid of cones, and the way it's normally set up is there's 5 going this way, and then you have sets of 2. So depending on how big your team is, you could do just 4, you could do 6, and then you create even lines behind these cones. You do a bunch of series of plyos throughout, and then you do some sprinting and some acceleration at the end. The thing I tell my girls when I'm running this is the most important part of this entire thing is high fives. This is the most important part. And so that gets them really excited, gets them engaged. And so, for example, you would do high knees to the first cone, butt kicks to the second one, high knees to the third. So it's like, okay. And then you high five your buddy at the end, and you do something like defensive shuffles down back on your way back. And you're high fiving other people as awkwardly as possible. It's gone. It's all right. And so you do different stuff like that. And so sometimes you'll slow it down and you'll do some walking stretches. And again, high-fiving people who are going back and forth. As you get to the end, you make it a little more exciting and you add things. For example, you'll be here and you'll fast feet. And then on the count of 3, you'll jump up and high five and run to the end. And fast feet and high five. And it always gets everybody laughing and engaged, and you have to make eye contact and you have to be connected. And there's kind of a series of other fun ones. The one that's really team cohesive, and in Seattle we do Seattle, the USA girls did USA, and it's these hops. Yeah, and so it's like USA. And they're pausing on the A, and so you have, yep, right, left, right. Well, yeah, you can. That's a double hop. That's the next level. I have them just do 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. And then the group behind them can start, and you get everyone in sync doing that. It looks really cool. I have a little video of the Seattle girls doing that last week at Girls Hat League. So if anyone wants to see what it looks like, it's fun. So the whole idea is just interaction, interaction, interaction. High fives, interaction, just being connected. So that's kind of the interactive warm-up piece that I really enjoy and have shared with a bunch of teams and think's awesome. All right, let's come back and we'll talk about a few other things.
One of the little tiny ones is mine.
One of the tiny ones might. Oh, Jay.
I would recommend
All right, so I talked about language. I talked a little bit about person defense as opposed to man defense and how important that is. Also talked about I'm sorry. So here's something I've been doing on teams for a little while now, and I love it. So if someone throws me a disc and say I drop it, I mess up, and I say I'm sorry, my teammates now remind me, they're like, wait, what did you say?
Wait, what did you say?
I'm a star! And then everybody else says exactly what Fran said.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you are. And so it creates this idea, right? When you say I'm sorry, you're kind of isolating yourself, you're sad, you're like, oh, I made a mistake. And then you get called out, you have to do an I'm a star jump. And so you do the I'm a star jump, and trust me, if it's a star, you will be doing it again. But that by itself would still be isolating, right? But then your teammates all chime in, yeah, you are. And now you're brought back into this fold of trust and community. And whatever happened, it's over, it's done. And it's a cool and fun way to keep that positivity up. The other thing I found in talking to other coaches of girls is that collaborative challenges work really well for girls. So if it's getting to 50 passes, or if it's, hey, we're going to try to score in the red zone 10 times, and you have 10 40-yard sprints, and every time you score successfully, you take away one of those sprints. And it's that idea of collaboration. And I think it's continuing to have conversations. Two things that came up in other groups when we talked about being challenged was creating drills that have progression. So where maybe we're working on dishy passes and we're just standing here and we're working on our dishy passes, then we take it to the next level where someone's cutting, we're throwing a dishy, and that's like the process of that. Maybe then we take it to the next level where someone's cutting, we throw the dishy, we look to huck it, and we have someone cutting for that, right? Maybe we take it to the next level, we've added defense. Now we get the dishy, we're looking to huck, it's not there, we fake, now they're coming under. So you add that progression to create challenge. One of the other things we talked about was supportive. Creating a drill, I really like 3 or 5 lines, and you have 5 people who have a frisbee, and people are just cutting towards you and switching lines. You're saying each other's names and making eye contact every time. Now you're engaged, now you're connected. So in the whole, that's kind of the gist of the ideas. It's about culture. It's about how you generate that energy and how you work together. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you guys. It was great to chat with you. And if you want any PDFs of this or details on the warm up, shoot me an email or get my email address, and I'm happy to send stuff over. So, thanks.
All right, thank you.